Hey guys, Darren Collier, Coach of Wildest Reports, and welcome back to another episode of Trade Mode, heading into round 11. One more week until the buys, and it is a big round of some decision making heading into this round with a bit of carnage going on. So let's get straight into it. I'll start with the trade date options because I think they're fairly obvious. Obviously, we have the likes of Jack McRae, Jason Horne-Francis, and Finn Callahan, both all out injured for an extended period of time. I think the likes of Jason Horne-Francis is targeted as 4 weeks. That's a hamstring, standard hamstring, but there is some whispers that it may be even shorter than that. He was running on track today, so that is good signs that he is recovering well. But uh, I don't know how much I trust Port Adelaide in the way that they handle hamstrings. You know, we think back to the debacle of last year with Rosie with that 1 week hamstring. So I don't know if I could trust the fact that he potentially could be back as early as after his bye. So I'm not sure I'm trusting that one at all. But I'll bring up my top 5 trade out targets right here. So he is number 1 on my list because of all the players that I think that are there, I wasn't 100% sure if Jason Horne-Francis was going to be top of his line realistically. Like he was doing well enough. He hadn't been an amazing pick to start the year. He had gone down a fair bit. People jumped on him at a lower price, so that was a bit frustrating. But this just gives the opportunity to jump off of him. Then you can really target those real top line guys there. So I think he's just an easy trade out target, especially with the buy in around 12 buy even at that. A fair few people are still pretty heavy in that zone, so that just helps your buys even better. So I don't mind jumping off him as my number 1. Finn Callahan is my number 2, just because, again, not going to be top liner. Out for 3 or 4 weeks with that dislocated shoulder. Tough run as well, so I just don't think it's one that I'd be holding on to, especially throughout the buy. So he's just an easy trade out target as well. The only one that I've played around with, if you're in the situation where you have all 3 of those guys, I think I'd rather be holding on to Jack McRae because yes, he's going to miss these next 2 weeks, probably guaranteed. But then he has his bye, and then he'll probably be back for around 14 more than likely. So I don't mind that play at all, and I think Jack McRae, as much as he's been up and down, he's definitely going to be a top 6 player in the forward line. So we're probably going to want him back at some stage. So if you hold on to him for that period of time, then you're probably one step ahead of most people in the competition, where people will have to jump back on him where you already have him. So of those 3, I think Jack McRae is probably the one I'd hold at the moment. That's if you have all 3. Now, if you only had 1 or 2 of them, then I think both are just trade outs, unfortunately. This time of the year, trying to hold these top line guys for multiple weeks really hurt your team in terms of points on field. So I just don't think you can do it. So I'm in the situation this week where I've got Jack McRae and Jason Horne-Francis, and I'm looking at trading out both. Right, so that's what I'd be doing, and that's what I encourage everyone else to be doing if you do have both of them. Now, if you're in the luxurious position and you only have one of them, then congrats to you. You're in a very solid spot this week, and you got a bit more flexibility. Obviously, if you have one of them, you're trading one of them, and then you're really looking at what you can do on the other side of that. And we'll get into some options there shortly, but realistically, I think you should probably be targeting value this week. So again, let's say you have, I think most people have Jack McRae, right? Everyone started him. He's 70% owned, whatever. So he's probably the one everyone has. So if you're jumping off him, you can probably target the likes of a Nick Martin, for example. Yes, it's costing you about 70, 80k, but then you can really downgrade a rookie on the other side of that and then target the likes of a Sim, or even try and go up to a mid-pricer and still get that mini upgrade from a rookie up to maybe a Coleman or something like that. So you're in a very good position that you can make that bit of an upgrade this week, or still target your cash generation and keep that ticking along, where the rest of us are sort of stuck in this limbo of having 2 forced trades and having to really target two other premiums as such, that to not make our team worse, right? It's a bit hard. It's a bit of a tricky situation because I have toyed around with, okay, I've got two premiums that I want to trade out. Okay, the obvious one is trade out to get 2 other premiums in, but I have toyed around with, okay, can I go up to a big boy like even a Zach Merritt, for example, pay up for him a little bit more, and then maybe go down to a mid-pricer who can do that bit of cash generation. But I'm not sure how keen I am on the mid-prices at this point in time. There's no clear one to me that is screaming this is a big play. I have already got Kitty Coleman, I must say that. If I didn't have him, then that's probably the play that I would look at, going a Horn Francis down to a Coleman, and then you can go a Jack McRae up to whoever you sort of want to play around with. If that's not a Nick Martin, then could you go to a big boy midfielder like a Dawson or a Dunkley or something like that. So there's a lot of different examples of what you could do, but for me, I'm just going straight back, going to two other premiums that I think are going to be there or thereabouts for a little while. So that is Holmes and Warner at this stage. Now, number 4, I did slot in Caleb Daniel in there as well. Now, you could be in the situation where you have the likes of a Jack McRae and a Caleb Daniel, and you could look to trade out both of them. Now, again, that could be a very similar situation where you could go a McRae up and then a Caleb Daniel down and play that bit of a one up, one down scenario, getting off Caleb Daniel because he is probably going to drop more money this week with a big high break even. Let's have a look at him here. He is got a break in of 101, dropped 24k on the weekend with a 70. Probably drops a bit of a lower score this weekend up against Collingwood, so that could be anywhere from a 60 to a 70. Probably loses another 30k. So if you can jump off him and jump on someone like a Kitty Coleman and that who's going up in coin, then that's going to be a big benefit for you in the long run. So I wouldn't mind that as an example. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, then obviously go Jack McRae and the rookies who sits at number 5. There's plenty of fat cash cow rookies that you could jump off at this stage, keeping in mind your buy structure and how you want to be set up with that. So that is pretty much the trade up situation we've got on this week. I will say, for those that have bias, I wouldn't be trading him out now. Like I said last week, I think unless he gets dropped and, or something crazy happens and he needs to go, I think now you're holding him for the long run because he's got a fairly strong run through to his buy now. He's got Melbourne, the easiest matchup for defenders. Crows are actually becoming quite easy as well. And then obviously Richmond are the easiest matchup for most positions. So I'd be holding him, and I will be holding him for the next 3 weeks, and then I'll look to jump off him at his buy there. So I wouldn't be trading him out there. I think you have other things you should be doing. I think he'll put up some very decent scores over the next 3 weeks. So hopefully that comes through. For those only unlucky ones that held Jaden Short for a second week in a row now, he is out for another 1 to 2 weeks with a calf strain. So again, he probably falls into that very similar category. I'm actually quite surprised there's still so many people that held him. 2 weeks in a row he was an out, so I thought that was way too long. So I didn't really even consider him in the top trade out targets. But if you still have him, he can still go. Tom de Koning, I don't know why you'd still have him after last week, but yes, again, probably needs to go if he's not playing this week. So don't want to mind all that. Cleary can go. He's losing a bit of coin now, trainer. If you want him to go, he can. He obviously got subbed on the weekend and potentially starts to lose some coin, but up against Essendon should be okay this week if you need him on field. So I'll leave the trade out targets there and we'll keep moving on. Because I want to try and keep this one a bit shorter than usual. So we'll start with the forwards this week because obviously we're trading out a lot of forwards. So we'll start with all the forward options that we should be looking at this week. So I'll get rid of that. And we'll look at my top 5 trade-in targets for forward line. And no obvious surprise, it is Nick Martin at number 1. Up against the likes of Richmond Tigers, he should have a field day against them. This should be one of his ceiling scores and be a potential 140 for him. Hopefully he can have a full time on ground. Essendon need to respond a little bit, so I'm expecting them to go pretty heavy in this game, and I think they're going to rely heavily on Nick Martin. Now, if you look at the DVP for the last 5 weeks particularly, Richmond Tigers are the easiest for wingman types, and that's obviously what Nick Martin is, right? That is plus nearly 14 points for wingman. So Nick Martin should have an absolute field day there. Plus, if you could even dive a little bit deeper and want to look a bit more long term, look at his run for the next period of time. He obviously plays Richmond twice in the span of 7 weeks, something like that. So that's obviously a positive. and there's no tough matchup within that period of time. Plus, if you even look through for the remainder of the year, only 2 tougher matchups for the remainder of the year. So I think he's a massive target. Yes, he's over $1 million, but I think he's all but worth it. Guaranteed probably F2 at this stage in the rolling. So yeah, I think he's a massive one that you should be jumping on, and probably is my number one target overall this week if you can get onto him. Number 2, I had Chad Warner. Now with 2 of the sort of top 6 guys sort of falling out in Jack McRae and Jason on Francis, Chad Warner just sneaks into the top 6 for the next period of time. So I really like him as an option. Bringing him in myself. Looks like he's found a bit of form since signing that contract. I think it was back in round 6 or something like that. Going at about 100 in that last couple. 95 in the he's going at 95 in the last 3 and 95 in the last 5. So he is still a little bit value priced at about 90 at the moment. So he's a decent pickup. Break even to 75 will go up cash. Decent matchup against the Melbourne Demons, and then obviously Crows and Richmond into his buy. And I also like him, and the reason why he's ranked a bit higher here is just the fact that we're sort of struggling with round 14 buy players. I think I mentioned this previously, but realistically, when you look at the list, we've only got probably a Nick Dacos. Maybe some people have a Bowie. Maybe you have an Anderson if you went the unique route early. But besides that, we're really struggling with a few of those options. So I think Chad Warner slots in perfectly into our forward lines for that buy, so that's the reason why I'm sort of picking him up this week, as well as being a bit of value and having a bit of form. So here's number 2. Number 3, I have got Isaac Rankin. Again, just bumping him up a fair bit more with those other guys out. Up against the likes of the Eagles, he should get that pop score for the price that you're paying for him. Playing a very decent role, looks solid, kicking goals most weeks as well. Yeah, he's just due for a bit of a big game, and I can definitely see it potentially happening this week, and it could be a bit of a ceiling week for him. So I think he's a great option. Again, obviously moving off of those 2 other guys, it's a pretty easy sideways trade for McRae. So if you don't have him, he's definitely a huge target. That's probably enough said about him. Now for 4 and 5, I've gone a few cheaper options, just really trying to target a bit more value here, just because not everyone has the money to go up to the likes of a Matthew Kennedy, who probably could be on this list, but again, round 12 buys. I won't bag on that too much, because now that we don't have the likes of a Daniel or a Jason on Francis in our forward line, we probably do have a bit of a spot for a Matthew Kennedy to sit there for a week, and he is performing extremely well. He's definitely part of the top 6 rolling in the forward line, and potentially is going to be a trade-in option later on in the year post his buy. So I don't absolutely hate it. If you have the money to go to him, then go for it. He's got the role and he's got the scoring ability. Just look what he's done in the last 5. It's kind of ridiculous, and he's got a good matchup this week as well. So if you can do it, go ahead. But he hasn't made my top 5 just because of value reasonings, and I'm still a little bit unsure what happens with his role when the likes of an Adam Treloar comes back into that side and plays a bit more midfield. Does that push him forward a little bit more? Does it hurt him? Maybe not. Maybe it does. Who knows? We'll have to wait and find out. So I'm not super certain on him just yet. But I have gone with James Peatling as my number 4, just because, he was a big target for a lot of people last week. Didn't probably perform as expected, but a 77 didn't absolutely hurt you. Low time on ground with a 65%, but that was up against, again, Collingwood. Very tough matchup, as I've said multiple times. Up against the Eagles this week, Matt Crouch is still out for 4 to 6 weeks, so he's still out for an extended period of time. So you could probably just have this as a buy play and have the likes of a Peatling through the next 4 weeks and see how it goes. Probably makes a bit of coin there. Price that 820k roughly. Up against the Eagles this week, should have a bit of a pop score, hopefully. So I don't mind him as a cheaper option if you're struggling with a bit of coin. But if you're absolutely struggling for coin, and probably someone that needs to be talked about a little bit more in depth, is the likes of a Mateus Philippou. Obviously, he's been someone that we've been keeping an eye on for the best part of the half of the year so far, just seeing how he's tracking with his injury. Obviously, come back in the last 2 weeks and did okay last week. The week prior, but last week against the Eagles really struggled with just a 50, which is a bit disappointing for those that did jump on. A low 59% on ground, which is super disappointing. Like, you expected him to do a lot better than that. He did score the 50 on the weekend. Now, if you're super struggling, now I am getting a bit more confident now that the likes of Jack McRae is out of that side for the next 3-4 weeks until his bye. I do think Mateus Philippou does go back into that midfield a little bit more. He did see a bit more midfield time last week. They're obviously just managing him, and Ross Lyon likes to play these games, and it is starting to become a bit of a concern with him managing a lot of his players' time on ground. But fingers crossed with that open opportunity, that does lead Philippou to play in that midfield role a little bit more. A lot more than what he's been playing recently. So I do have a bit more confidence that he will play there, but there's also the likes of a Wangani Malira who's been playing in that midfield. Sinclair has the opportunity to do that. Do they bring a Boxall back from the twos and play in that role as well? So they do have a plethora of options to be in there. So for those sort of reasons, plus the higher break even now, Mateus Philippou is number 5. He is more of a watch for me for the next period of time and could potentially be a trade-in target post his round 13 bye. But I would again probably have question marks when the likes of a Jack McRae comes back then. If Jack McRae comes back in round 14 and I'm looking to trade into Philippou round 14, then it sort of raises more concerns than answers realistically, because I haven't seen them play both together in that midfield. So I just don't know when we're going to get him in. And I just want to keep monitoring it for the next couple of weeks still, I think. So, but if you're struggling, if you need a bit of cash generation, or you need to jump on someone a bit cheaper in that forward line, then he's definitely someone that you could take a punt on, and assuming that he's going to play a bit more midfield and generate some cash for you. But quickly just scanning through a couple more options in the midfield. Obviously, there's a lot of different options here that are people playing with. I probably should just touch on Cooper Simpson while he's here. He is by far the only downgrade option you're looking at. I can even just bring that up for you. Here, I've only put him down there because I literally am not considering anyone else. If you have the luxury of going to these rookie types, you're picking up Cooper Simpson and you're running with it, because the rest of us aren't going to be able to jump on it until potentially next week if he's still there. So take it while you can. So there is that one. Going back to the forward line though, so you've got the likes of a Shai Bolton that a lot of people are looking at. And he's definitely someone that I have looked at, but I'm not super confident with. I know in the last sort of 2-3 weeks, he has had good scoring ability, and that was against 2 tougher opponents. I will say that. Collingwood's one of the toughest. GWS has dropped away a little bit, but have traditionally been a very strong team. And Port Adelaide obviously have been a strong team to score against. Sorry, a tough opponent to score against for multiple years now. So he could have a bit of a slower one this week, but he has had an uptick in his midfield role. I could even probably show you that here at Fremantle since Hayden Young's gone down particularly. So he's getting around that 50%, a bit more now. Has had a few different spurts here and there throughout, but not super consistent. So he does scare me a fair bit, and I don't know if I could do it, but I can understand the appeal. Round 13 slots into that forward line quite nicely because we don't have anyone in there now with Jack McRae out. So I can see the appeal, but it's definitely not something that I'm looking at doing. Here's a cheaper price tag, I understand that, but it's a very risky one, and I just don't think I could do it. It could definitely backfire, and he could definitely drop a very stinky score on you. He's been shown to do 22s and 40s, and if not 60s, and that's not something you want at this time of year. So I'm just staying well clear of that. Luke Jackson's a different option as well, just with the likes of Sean Darcy being out, but he is a test to play this week. Up against the likes of a Dante Vizentini this week. Could go extremely well. Again, got the forward ruck status, so he could be your ruck cover for the likes of a Cherry next week in round 12. So that could play quite nicely into your hands. But yeah, again, Sean Darcy's back as soon as this week. So I'm not sure about something that I'd be jumping into, even though he has the potential of scoring quite well with Sean Darcy in. He did score a 66 in that first week, but did score a 92 in the second week. So it could be very up and down. I don't know if I see the value in him if that's the play that you're looking at. I just don't see the value there, but I do see the value in the potential of it having that ruck cover for 1 week, and then you could move him into the forward line for the remaining of the weeks if he's a longer term play for you. So I don't absolutely hate it, but it's probably not one I'm looking at this week. Besides that, there's a couple other rookies I wouldn't probably trade in a day week. Just has no scoring ability, could easily drop a very low score for you, and then his cash generation's dead, and you got another dead rookie on your field, so I wouldn't be going there, unfortunately. Not looking at a Pickett. A Petrarca definitely could be another option you could jump onto, but again, I do think he's a little bit overpriced for what you're going to get for the next period of time. He does have a couple of tough matchups with particularly Collingwood and Port Adelaide heading into his bye. After the bye is definitely a bit of a better stretch. So if you don't have him yet, I'd probably hold out until then. That's particularly what I'm doing, not as an owner at the moment. So take that as you will. You're not jumping on the likes of a Marek. His time is nearly done. You've missed his good run now and his decent scoring ability over the last 3 weeks. He could potentially drop a couple lower ones in the next couple of weeks. So I wouldn't be jumping on there. Myers, I'll be honest, I haven't fully looked at this option since his return. Obviously gone, 95 in the last two, with a decent, with a couple tougher matchups. Tougher one again this week. But then has the likes of an Eagles and a decent actually little run coming up. So I don't absolutely hate it. I just don't know if I see him being that sort of top line guy. We've seen him be an 85, 90 guy in the past, but I'm not sure that's enough to be part of the top 6 forwards for the remainder of the year. So for those sort of reasons, I'm staying clear. I think while we have the opportunity sideways to these other guys, then I'd be doing that. But again, if you're struggling with a bit of coin, he could be that bit of a buy play, and then you can look at trading out post the buy as that sort of luxury as you sort of got all the rookies off the field. So don't mind that one at all. But I think I'll sort of leave it there for the midfield option. Sorry, the forward options there. I think it gets a bit unique from here on out, and I think I've talked about plenty of options there. So we'll move into the rucks quickly. I don't think anyone's playing around with rucks this week, besides if you're going with the likes of Luke Jackson, but unless you missed a Royal Marshall last week, I still think he's a great option this week. I know he has the likes of Wicks this week particularly, and then Max Gorn, but he will go up in some fashion of coin. He probably hits a low 90, if not a mid-ton, then he probably goes up another 30, 40k. So while he's still sub 100k, sub a mil, I think it's worth jumping on him for the remainder of the year. So if you're struggling, if you don't have a ruck option that you like at the moment, maybe you're on a Darcy Cameron, or you've got a Lloyd Meek or something like that you're not happy with, then jumping on a Royal Marshall is definitely a play this week. Besides that, I'll have Tristan Cherry at number 2, but he's getting very out of reach now. Ticked over that $1.1 million range. Gorn's still at number 3. At that 1.2 range now, which is just unbelievable how highly expensive he is. But no surprising how good he's been over the last month and a bit. But then I also threw in Visitini as a 4th option down there, just because I sort of suggested it a little bit last week that obviously had the extremely tough matchup against Riley O'Brien the week prior, was coming into a nice matchup against the likes of a Blitzarves this week and put up a very nice score. Would have been a pretty handy 46k price rise. So if you were running him as a potential 3, as a bit of cover throughout the buys, I didn't mind it as an option. Comes up against the likes of a Luke Jackson and potentially a Sean Darcy this week, so that could be again another decent score from him. So there is a world where it's a bit of a play, but I definitely wouldn't be doing it as an R2. I just don't know if that's something that I'd look at. Not when you're losing so many points to the big boys. Your Gorns, your Marshalls, your Cherries up there. You're losing ridiculous amount of points week on weeks, but you're also getting the cash generation on the other side of things. So I probably wouldn't be playing it as an R2, but there is definitely a play there that I'm still trying to figure out, being the only ruck mid-price option available. So I just wanted to mention that if you're looking at that as an option, then you're definitely not crazy. I'm looking at it something like that too at some stage. But we'll move on from those guys. We'll move into the midfield line real quick. And number one target I have in the forward line this week is Jordan Dawson. Now, he is not cheap. He is by far the number one midfielder in the competition at this stage, averaging 111, nearly 112. Been super pick so far, had really good scores. Always a great captain option as well. Up against the Eagles this week, should have another massive one. So if you buy him in now, you'll get that pop score, and then you'll just have him for the remainder of the season. So I just think he doesn't need no elaboration realistically. You're picking him up. He's got a decent matchup this week. While the run probably isn't massive for the remainder of the season, I'll say he's got decent 3 games this week for the next couple of weeks. Fourth on before the bye, but after the bye is very up and down with a couple green matchups and but a couple tough ones at the same time. So, but I just think he's top of the midfielders at the moment in the best 22. So yeah, he's definitely someone that you want to target. If not now, then definitely probably post by his round 15 bye when he plays the likes of Richmond, then Melbourne with Gold Coast not far behind. So make your plans. He's definitely someone that you should be targeting sooner rather than later. Number 2, I had Noah Anderson, and that probably comes at a bit of surprise, but after what I saw a little bit last week, with that 116, he does have that caliber to go there, and he is super cheap. It's below 950k, so priced at about that 95 range at the moment. We definitely know he is normally a 105 sort of guy, so he has 10 points of potential value. They're up against the likes of St Kilda, and even looking at his run for the next period of time, St Kilda, Fremantle, Geelong into his bye, round 14 bye. Again, a bit of a tricky bye that not many people have there at the moment, besides maybe a day cost. But then GWS, Melbourne, and Essendon. So a good, decent 6-week stretch. And then obviously for the remainder of the season, you could probably sideways trade him at some point. So he's definitely an option this week to run through the buys, and then you can see later on at that cheaper price. The only thing I will say is that he does rely pretty heavily on high disposals. He had to get 35 disposals to get that 116. There's very minimal marks or tackles. Does play in the likes of Alice Springs, I think, this week. I didn't actually fact check that, but I'm pretty confident that was the case. No, he plays at GMHB 8. No, never mind. Looking at the wrong week. He does play. He plays at Marvel this week, sorry. I'm pretty sure he plays at TIO. So it's like, yeah, he plays at Alice Springs next week, sorry. Against. Never mind. Just ignore me. I am just losing my brain here. So, never mind. But yeah, I think he's a great target either way. He's got that caliber to go bigger. But again, we have seen some lower scores from him, so he's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride every now and then. So he is number 2. Number 3, I have Zach Merritt, obviously coming off that stinky score of 54, but he has been someone that I have absolutely been targeting for a little while. I even said it for the last couple of weeks that this matchup was definitely something that I was looking forward to, but obviously having some doubts now with that 54 in mind. But if you asked me at the start of the season that I could pick up a Zach Merritt for $1 million, then I would absolutely take that at any stage in time. It's priced at that 100 range, 101 at most. So if you ask me if I could pick him up for that price, then absolutely I'd be going for that. With his run for the next period of time, then he's definitely someone that I'd be looking to jump on to. Richmond, Brisbane, Carlton, Geelong, Fremantle up into his bye, then even after that, Gold Coast, Richmond, and GWS. So he plays Richmond in 2 times in the next 7 weeks. Sorry. So yeah, he's definitely could be 150 plus in both those games. So I wouldn't be worried about what his break even is, even though theoretically he could be the exact same price this time next week. You're probably going to miss a big pop score from him that could be a 130 plus, right? So if you have the opportunity to grab him this week, absolutely do it. That's where I'll probably give you the example of if you only have the one of the likes of a McRae, then you could go to a McRae to a Merritt and then do the downgrade on the other side of things. That's definitely probably my preference of the lots there. So yeah, I love Zach Merritt. Obviously, he's easily top 8 in his line as a midfielder. So yeah, jump on him there. Jack Steele is a bit of a cheaper one, 950k, around that same sort of price as the likes of Noah Anderson. Where is he? Now that Jack McRae is out, he probably gets more ball in hand, which is probably the only thing that we haven't seen from him a huge amount this year. You know, looking at these last three, particularly when he's been a bit more fit, he's only gone at the low 20 uh, disposals, if not even less than that. So I'm expecting that to have a bit of an uptick this week. Hopefully it's at 25, if not 30. And obviously we know he can tackle, we know he can mark. So I'm expecting a bit of a bump in his scoring potential over the next couple of weeks while Jack McRae is out. But again, probably not someone that we want long term. So it is a bit of a short term play for the next 2 weeks, if not, throughout the bye period. So yeah, have that as consideration. Yeah, it also is a bit more expensive than what I'd probably like as well. So that's why it's a bit further down. I have got Dunkley at number 5, just as that, a solid target. Yes, he's got a high break even, but again, you're just paying for what you're going to get with him. He's very solid. He hasn't dropped below 94 all year. Unfortunately, that was this week. But yeah, he's just super solid. Never going to be one that you need to worry about at a decent price range at this point in time. So yeah, I don't mind jumping on him this week. A couple other options that are here. I definitely looked at the likes of a Sarong because I'm in that same sort of price range. I just don't know if I see him turning around. Like, he's obviously had that one good week last week. We had half a game where he wasn't subbed, so he does have that potential of scoring well when he isn't subbed. He isn't tagged, but he just gets tagged so often because he is so damaging. So I just don't know if I see a world where he doesn't get tagged for X period of time. This week could definitely be either a Bergman or even a Drew goes to him. So they could even do a double tag job on the likes of Brayshaw and a Sarong, so I wouldn't be surprised with that. Maybe round 12 was the play that you could go with him. I don't see a tag coming in the Suns game unless a Miller goes to him. North, don't see something happening there. Essendon, they do sometimes have a bit of job with a Setterfield or a Durham. St Kilda is obviously the one that they always have a bit of tag, whether that's a Windhager, maybe a Garcia now, Boxall even. They always have some sort of tagger. So there are tag concerns over the next period of time. So I don't think it's someone that I'm looking to trade into, even though he is an extremely low price at this stage. So probably not looking there. Heaney, I haven't seen enough for him this year to jump on him. Again, very up and down. He is starting to find a bit more form over the last week and a bit, or last 3 weeks, but nothing amazing yet. But his floor is pretty high with about a 70. So I don't absolutely hate it, but not something I'm looking at this stage. Not going to be top of his line. Bontempelli, I don't mind it if you have the flexibility with around 12 buys period. But that's probably be about where I cut it off for midfielders. Now let's quickly go through the defenders where not many people will be looking, besides a couple names here. My number one trade-in target for defenders is Jack Sinclair, obviously off that big 134 on the weekend. With Nasiah a bit unsure with his injury at the moment, he could be a bit hindered, so I think Jack Sinclair will definitely pick up the slack. So I could see him having another big score this weekend against the Suns under the roof at Marvel. Runner's pretty good as well. Obviously got Melbourne next weekend, so definitely someone that you want to own next week as well. Round 13 bye, again, great, especially if you're already a bit light in that field, particularly like myself. I've only got the sign of Blangaling Malura now with Jack McRae out. Maybe you have the likes of a Brayshaw in there. I don't think it hurts to have an additional one in there, having the 3. So I think that's definitely a play. Very cheap, about that 95 price range at the moment. We know he can go out 105, if not a minimum 102. So yeah, provides a bit of value, and he's starting to hit his strides again on the weekend. So I think he's a great option. I have got Kitty Coleman at number 2, just because he is super cheap. Priced around about 54, 55 at the moment. He easily goes at 75, 80 at most. At least an 80, and probably makes 200, 250k, getting up to that sort of 750, 800k price tag. Definitely could be a bit of a buy play as well, so he could potentially go at his round 16 buy. The run isn't amazing for defenders, but I don't think it really matters when you've got a guy this cheap. He can go really, really well. And like I said in my last my Monday video, his time on ground super super low. That should definitely jump up over the next couple of weeks. Probably not going to reach the likes of high 80s, but I definitely see mid to high 70s for him in the next couple of weeks. So that just gives him more opportunity to get more of an appeal, take a few more kick-ins as well, and yeah, he should definitely be one that you want to jump on as a mid-pricer. Again, like I said, definitely can play a bit around with. You could go down to him as a bit of a downgrade target, prioritizing a bit of cash generation, and then upgrade on the other side of things. So he's definitely that option to be jumping on, as I did last week. I already spoke about Nick Martin as a forward. Again, I'm prioritizing Nick Martin as a forward because I think he's top on the line there rather than in the defensive line at this stage. Number 3, I still have Max Holmes, even though I don't feel super comfortable with it this week. I just think with the price range that he is at, below 900k, he's just someone you can easily sideways to, and he has a fairly good run coming up. I'll show you that here. Besides this week against the Western Bulldogs, obviously tough matchup, as we all know. He then goes West Coast, Suns, Essendon, and Brisbane into his bye. But then after his bye goes Richmond, GWS, St Kilda, North, and pretty much only has one tough matchup, or technically 2 if you want to count GWS, for the remainder of the year, and plays the Richmond Tigers twice in the back end of the season. So I'm looking at picking up this week and then just running him through to the remainder of the season. Fingers crossed he can be a bit more consistent on the back end of that with some easier matchups. And I'm also getting a bit more confident that he won't be a target fairly shortly. With the way that Bailey Smith is going, he's just absolutely running right in there at the moment. So definitely, I think that will make that shift throughout the rest of the season. So I think that does leave a bit more options for Bailey Smith to go a bit better. So I still think he's a great target and someone that is coming into my side this week if nothing changes at this stage. Number 4, I do have Dane Zorko. He is getting a bit more pricey now, but again, solid top 6 defender in his line. Didn't seem like Kitty Coleman had any sort of effect on him whatsoever. It really pushed the liked of Fletcher forward, which is what we always sort of expected. At the end of the day, Zorko is an all-Australian halfbacker now. I don't see that changing for the rest of his career. So he's just solid as rock. Had a fairly good month now, averaging about 110. Sorry, 110. And his last 3 has gone at 115. So at his price range, about that 106 sort of zone, he's got a little bit of value in him as well for what the numbers that we know he can go with. So I don't mind you jumping on him, but you're paying up a fair bit now there. And then at number 5, I have gone for the cheaper option in Miles Bergman. This is ignoring all the buys and whatnot. I did like the role that he played in the first half of this game, playing as a sole midfielder. Yes, was tagging the likes of Bailey Smith, was doing a fairly good job at it, and also was getting a huge amount of the ball. I think he was on like 50 something at half time, so he was doing a good job and also scoring pretty well. So he's definitely someone that I'm still quite heavily looking at and assessing over the next couple of weeks. The only reason he's not probably high on this list because of all the injuries that they have at Port Adelaide with some defenders, that he may be forced to play a bit more back there to be a bit more accountable. And there's also the fact that Port Adelaide is getting smashed at the moment, so they may just try and revert back to the old way that they may want to play like they did last year. With getting Rosie back into that midfield, Butters in there, Ollie Wines, Drew, obviously Horn Francis is injured for the next couple of weeks, so I could definitely see that happening fairly quickly. So he's probably someone that I will evaluate for this weekend, and then I can probably make a bit more of a call after his bye, and maybe he can be a bit more of a buy play as that mid-price range, price about 700k. Definitely is someone that I'm still evaluating. But again, if you're looking for the cheaper guys this week, he's definitely a decent target that you could look up and run throughout the buys, hoping that he holds on to that midfield spot. Just a couple other defender options here that a lot of people are looking at. You're not looking at Mark Blitzarves there. The likes of Stanley was an emergency last week. I guess he just didn't quite get up for the game. I do see him playing this week, though. I just don't see them going long term with Mark Blitzarves in that ruck line. He is 34. He is going to need a rest at some stage. So I just don't see that coming through. Up against the likes of English, I think he will definitely have a tougher time. So I don't think the score is going to be as fruitful as you probably expect it to be, and you are paying a pretty significant amount at 750k. I just don't think it's something that I'd be doing. And I can actually get that straight off the press here. The teams have just been announced for tomorrow night's game, which is surprisingly the Cats and Western Bulldogs, and it looks like Stanley has been named as in. So yeah, they're going to run with Stanley as their main ruck. So Blitzarves is definitely not an option. Bailey Stale is an option though, obviously back off that big 49 disposals on the weekend with that 154. It is probably a bit more reactionary that a lot of people will look at him. Obviously, he's been, besides the score on the weekend, been probably a bit underwhelming and hasn't done particularly well. So I don't think it's someone that I'll look at long term, but again, could be a bit of a buy play for people at that 950k range. But I do think there's better options. You know, Sinclair is probably 4k cheap, more expensive than him, so I'd definitely be going there before Bailey Dale. And I'd probably even be going down to a Holmes before I go to a Dale. Probably tells you something. I'm not a super big fan of what his potential able to do back there. So yeah, not a huge fan. Besides that, obviously Lockie Whitfield's obviously still hanging around, still super expensive, man. How has he dropped these two lower scores in that last 3 weeks and still that expensive is beyond me. But yeah, I'm still waiting for him to come down a fair bit. Probably a huge target as soon as next week, realistically. If not, obviously next week he does have the likes of Richmond Tigers, so that'll be a pretty fruitful matchup. If not, you'll want him after his bye sort of situation because he does have a fairly decent run after that. So make your play of when you want to get him in. But I think I'll sort of cut it off there for the trade in, trade out targets. So that will be about it. Now, the last thing I sort of, I guess I should probably go through my top 5 targets overall. So my top 5 targets overall this week is definitely Nick Martin as number 1. I just think, again, this matchup, his run, his price at the moment, definitely top 6 in his line. Either one you want to look at, he's a great option and is potentially going to be a captain option this week. So he is my number 1. Kitty Coleman is number 2 for me, just being that cheaper guy you can rely on, prioritizing some cash generation. Yeah, I think he goes well, so he's just easily number 2. Number 3, if you're in that luxury position of being able to go to a cheaper guy, that is Cooper Simpson as sort of that only rookie that is going to generate cash for the next period of time, plus around 13 buys handy as well. So he is number 3. Number 4, I did have the likes of Jack Sinclair there. Again, he is super cheap for what he can do, priced about 95, can go at 102, I think. So yeah, definitely think he can go well over the next couple of weeks, around 13 buy as well. So really just prioritizing those buy plays. And then finally, I have the likes of Jordan Dawson at number 5, just someone that you're just going to pay out for, get him while you can, get a pop matchup out of him. Could be a potential captain option for you this week if you want to go there. So yeah, that is my top of 5 this week. What am I looking at doing? I sort of already told you, but I'll quickly just show you here. So I am still going Jack McRae and Jason Horne-Francis to the likes of Holmes and Chad Warner. So that is my trades. Hopefully nothing changes too much when it comes to teams tomorrow night. I don't think anything will change that too often. Okay, but the final thing I wanted to talk about in this video for the next sort of 15 minutes or however long this is going to take is the buy structures. And normally I talk about this in the start of the video, but I thought I'd leave this to the end just because I think it's a good time to start really prioritizing and start putting in some names to who are we looking at trading out and who we are looking at trading in over the next period of time throughout the buys. So When it comes to trade out targets for round 12, I think it's pretty obvious that, if you're still holding a Camp Daniel, he's definitely a huge one that you should be looking to jump off of. I think he'll be a massive one that people jump off, and he's definitely in my targets to be going. So he is definitely one that you want to jump off of. Then you could also jump off the likes of maybe Finn O'Sullivan. Obviously, he's been chopping around in our teams for a long period of time, not really doing anything, but he's not really hurting us in the sense that he's just hovering there. And if you're really struggling for green dots, he is a green dot at the end of the day, so I don't mind you keeping him. But Moraes, on the other hand, has been prone to being subbed a fair bit. So he is probably another example that could go quite easily at that higher, a bit more elevated price tag at 436k. I would like to see him break back into that side and start generating some cash again with that nice score on the weekend, but I just don't ever see it happening. They've still got Boak that is potentially going to come back into the side at some stage very shortly, so that will take his role quite quickly. So he's probably on the trade out targets as early as next week. Besides that, it's really setting up your buys with the 3 trades that you have, and you could trade out some red dots. So, Stone is a huge example of that. If you have a Cloesi like myself, he's definitely a huge one that you could go out. Boxall, does he come back? Who knows? It's really just trying to have as many green dots as you can through the buys, so you can have all the available options to you every single week to maximize your players on field and maximize your points throughout the buys. So that's the trade out players that you should be looking at. If I show you my spreadsheet again, which I showed you last week, I have filled in this a little bit more, which is my trade out targets for the week. Don't really mind the rest of it. It's all pretty much the exact same. Just looking at my trade ins and looking at my trade outs, whatnot. So for me, I'm looking at trading the likes of Moraes, Stone, and Daniel next week, and that does give me enough to, go to maybe a Sinclair, pick up a Simpson, who may be at that 370k range, and then pick up a basement sort of rookie that gives me enough coin to continue on throughout the weeks, and that does sort of secure up my my buy structure heading into the buys. So while most people already have the likes of a Brayshaw, a Sinclair, and a Nasiwang and a Malera, I don't only have one of them, so I probably want to pick up one of them just to be a bit more secure in that buy particularly. So while that's probably not ideal for most people, that works for me. But for you guys, you can really pick up anyone when it comes to the round 12 buy trade targets, because at the end of the day, you're trading in someone who's going to have a buy regardless, whether that's in round 12 or round 16. So I don't absolutely hate it that you could trade in absolutely anyone. Probably where most people lead to is they want to trade in round 16 players, because you get the most amount of weeks out of them before they have their buy. So it probably limits the risk side of things, that if anything goes wrong, or the buy changes a few things, then that it limits that risk, right? But I think when you're shopping around for premiums, you have that limited risk when it comes to it anyway. So I don't think it really matters who you're trading into as a premium when you're trading in round 12. I will say there is a play where you can trade in, some couple mid prices. That's definitely an option that I have done in the past, because at the end of the day, there is very limited risk when it comes to best 18. If you run with, an extra couple mid prices that fill in your structure, then if they do drop a stinky 40 or something, that most likely that's going to drop off of your best 18, and you just trade them out at the end of the day anyway. So you have the free trades to rectify that throughout. So there's definitely a play where you can take a bit more risk on throughout the buys, especially being 5 weeks this year. Then there's extended period of time that you can probably get some cash generation going. So if there are a couple mid-price options that we can look at next week, that could be a Philippou or a Bergman, a McKercher, a Mills, for just a couple examples there, even a Peatling, then there's definitely a world where you could look at getting a couple of them next week and running them through the buys as a bit more cover. So that is probably the trade-in targets for round 12. Moving on to round 13, I will say, you're pretty much just targeting these round 12 guys. So obviously, round 12's happened, you're moving into round 13, you're now targeting the guys that are off their bye, because now they're not going to have a bye for the remainder of the year, and they're going to have the extra game up their sleeve. So you're really targeting these sort of guys. So I've got the likes of a Sam Walsh, a Batters, a Bontempelli, a Trelaw, even a Matthew Kennedy has popped into these sort of trade-in targets for my side particularly. If you don't have the likes of a Sheasel or a Cherry or a Rosie, definitely they could be a lot of options as well. A Horn Francis may even make a return at some stage. That is Caleb Daniel, if you cannot see that. Yeah, there's that one. But yeah, there's a huge amount of options that you'll be looking at come round 12. Sorry, I'm probably looking at the likes of Bontempelli, and the reason for that is I just want a piece of this Western Bulldogs fuckfest at this point in time. They have been by far the best team fantasy wise over the last sort of month. That I just want a piece of that, so I want to try and get someone as soon as possible. Now that could easily be the likes of a Kennedy if I were looking for a midfield, a forward option. I definitely don't mind him as an option then, but I just think I need midfielders, right? When I look at my team, I've only got 3 pure midfielders, and that's the likes of Dawson, Dunkley, and Dacos, so the 3D boys. So now I need to start prioritizing and getting some more midfielders in there. And that's probably something I should mention as well, is that keeping track of who you're trading in and what your team looks like by the end of the buys is definitely something that you should be looking at, because you don't want to be ending up trading in, 7 defenders and then you can't fit one into your side. You've got to keep an eye of how many defenders do I have, how many forwards do I have, and just so you keep your structure alive. So when it does return back to best 22, you're not finding yourself in a bit of shit up creek and you're having to field one of your premiums on the bench because you have no way of having the flexibility around to get them on field. But there is no shame in saying having a defender in your midfield line, for example, like a Sheasel or something like that. So I think we are pretty blessed this year to have that flexibility where a lot of premiums have that DPP to be able to shift them around. But yeah, it's just always a good philosophy to keep an eye on what your team looks like by the end of the buys, so you're not having to trade in too many of the wrong players. So for me, that means really targeting the premium midfielders, because I'm probably already looking at having 6 premium defenders by the end of the buys. But continuing on, round 13, like I said, it could be a Bontempelli, so you're really looking at these guys. But again, you could probably even look at a Bergman following his buy, and McCurt should potentially, depending on how he goes this week, is another mid price option that a lot of people will potentially be looking at. But in terms of trade outs for round 13, it becomes a bit tricky. This is probably one of the trickier rounds for planning out your trades, because you probably have very limited rookie options in there. Maybe you have a Philippe, maybe you traded him in early, and maybe he hasn't been performing the way you want him to, so he could potentially be that guy that goes. Same with a Boxall. If he doesn't continue to playing, he can be that red dot that leaves your side. Yes, it's tricky because he is so lowly priced at this stage, but realistically, it can be that sort of week where you can do whatever you want, be a bit more flexible. If you're heavier in the back end of the buys, for example, for me, I'm pretty heavy in my last buy, so in this week I could really start to just get forward planning and start trading out these guys. So when I get to round 16, I'm not so heavy in there. So, for example, I'll be trading out looks like of a Boxall because he's sort of the only rookie I have in that line throughout that week, and then I'll continue moving forward. So then that could be a Cleary, and maybe a Long can definitely go, and that's limiting my trade options coming in the week the week after that, where I'll probably trade out the likes of a Bice and a Trainer, and then continue again moving forward, trading out a Marek. And then the week after that, then I can really again start moving forward, trading out these guys. So you really want to keep one foot in front, so you're not running into this week where if there is a bit of carnage, then you're stuck with a trade, and then you end up having not enough players on field during that week. So that's just an example I wanted to show you. I could continue going through what sort of options we have, but again, yeah, this is just what suits my team. Your team could be definitely a huge, very different, but I just try and reiterate that it is important for me that I like to go ahead and start to profile in who I want to be traded in, who wants to be traded out. For example, again, round 14, I'm probably looking at the likes of Brayshaw. Now, that suits my team because I don't have Brayshaw, but a lot of other people do. So you'd probably be looking at a different option, whether maybe that's the likes of a Sarong, or maybe you want to get onto a Marshall, or maybe McRae's back and you want to jump back on him. Who knows? But besides that, you'll probably be looking at a lot of these round 12 guys again in that round. That could be a Butters, you know. Maybe a Trelaw comes back and starts playing midfield and starts being that big midfielder that we know he can be. So yeah, just start plotting in some names, start putting some prices next to them, and start really prioritizing what you're sort of looking at doing. Because yeah, looking at this, I can tell, okay, these are the way my trades are going. I've got 44k left following this week, going into next week. Okay, can I use that to then do these sort of trades that I'm expecting to get up to the guys that I'm looking at, plus the unknown of a basement rookie that will hopefully come in next week. Which, speaking of that, we've also got the mid-season draft happening on Wednesday next week, so we will have a bit of a boost of rookies coming through as we do most years. So I'm not super worried about what rookies we're going to have coming through. I know it's been a bit of a dry patch for the last 3-4 weeks, but I do expect a bit of a boost coming through very shortly. There's always a couple of those mid-season draft players that come through. So yeah, just definitely something that I wanted to mention in this. But besides that, yeah, just continue putting in some names throughout the trade period, and obviously your trade out targets, just keeping one step forward. But I probably haven't described that very well because it is very complicated and it is very hard to sort of try and see the future in a sense that there's every chance that, you know, following this week we could have a few more forced trades and then all these bloody plans go out the window. But you can make those shuffles and can make those plays as you go through. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about. But I think I'll probably leave it there for you guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video. Again, leave a like, subscribe, do all those great things. I do appreciate it as always. Hopefully your trades go well this week. If you have any questions, drop them below, or again, go see my QU link in the description. Besides that, have a great week, and I will see you tomorrow for captains. See you then. Bye.